Hello my brethren, I hope you're all well. In this video I will address the issue of male virginity. I had a request from someone to discuss the topic matter, but I have decided that it's best to produce a video and share my opinions on this. Now before I get to the topic, let's be clear here. You all know I'm not a virgin, and I'm actually far from it. Therefore, it would be very presumptuous of me to say that I can associate with the situation. However, since my opinion was requested, I will give it my 2 cents. Now, prior to anyone making any comments to the video, I will say this. I wish there is no shaming of anyone who might be a virgin in the comments. I wish there be no flame wars against any virgins. Remember, this is MGTOW, a male safe space, and the topic will be covered as well as I can, and I hope in the comments the gynocentric points of view are kept at a minimum. I will start the video with a short story on how I lost my virginity. I was 17 at the time and I was a horny little fuck. There was nothing else I thought about at the time other than sex, and I just needed to get it out of my system. I spent some time in clubs until I started dancing with an older woman, and I asked her, "Do you want to fuck?" She took me to her apartment, and it was the most uninspiring sex I have ever had in my life. It took me ages to put a condom on. I pumped her and felt nothing while doing it. I continued to pump and still nothing. Suffice to say, after a couple of hours, I was done in a plastic cylinder-shaped dick. I hated that moment. I don't remember the girl's name or her face. If I saw her again, I would not recognize her. It was the most uninspiring moment of my entire adult life. Well, if you count 17 as being an adult. Now, what followed after that was the pretending that sex was awesome and amazing, and that, I lost my virginity now, therefore I had to keep getting sex in order to prevent my virginity from returning. I fucked a lot of girls because I had to get it done, because otherwise I wouldn't be a man. I was shamed into believing that sex was amazing. It took actually a relationship with the person that I trusted for me to realize my fetishes and explore more of my personal fixations with regards to sex. I have rarely in my life had sex that I enjoyed, and to this day I still find myself in situations where I'm completely uninspired by the sexual act. However, I continue performing, because that's what a man does, right? Well, wrong. Now, my brothers, if you're truly honest with yourselves, tell me how many of the sexual encounters you actually enjoyed. How many? Half? A quarter? Less than that? Honestly, how many? Is it the ejaculation that is achieved, or is there something more that makes you want to have sex? I mean, yeah, there is male mother need, the heroin effect, whatever you might want to call it, that closeness to the female. That female that hugs and encompasses you in her arms. And yeah, it feels good. It really feels good. We all know it. But if you're honest with yourselves, how many times have you sat down with your mates and discussed your sexual achievements? How many times does the subject fall in a conversation between men? Sex is an important method in which men are measuring themselves against each other. The man who fucks a lot is a winner. The man who doesn't is a loser. After all, everywhere in society the man is measured in the amount of pussy that he conquers. Whatever his actions, whatever his methods, whatever the achievements for a man, ultimately they're all measured in his ability to gain access to that one vagina or to multitude of vaginas. We all know this. We all know this is how things work. And I remember it for myself. I mean, I'm still guilty of endorsing this type of conversation, and perhaps I should stop. But it is a fundamental part of being a man. These conversations are bound to happen. In the eyes of other men, a virgin is seen as something broken, as someone with perhaps something wrong with him. Otherwise, why the fuck wouldn't he get a girl, right? Why the fuck indeed? What's worse, the above statements, the above gynocentric belief is that your value is only what a woman perceives you to be, meaning of course that you are your sexual market value, which is a deeply engraved gynocentric belief in all the men, a belief that actually exists in a lot of the circles, even in MGTOW. On occasions where I'm being accused of never having a female, I get very bitter. I feel the strong urge to reply and list the amount of females that I have had sex with, and I regret even having the thought cross my mind. And I have done it in the past, and I have argued in the past with people about this, because I was still stuck in that universe of gynocentric belief. Sometimes it's as if the question arises in our heads, the one I previously mentioned, why the fuck wouldn't he get a girl? The images of our past fallen relationships, the knowledge of gynocentrism, of hypergamy, and of course the overall misandry that is left unchecked in society of today are not our first thoughts. Our first thoughts are that this guy is worth nothing because he hasn't fucked a girl. There is something wrong with this man. Otherwise, he would have had sex by now. Maybe he's gay. Maybe he's a pedophile. Maybe. Yet we forget to give praise to men who have died virgins and have achieved a lot of things. We forget Tesla, and if you're religious during those moments, you forget Jesus. It's as if we as men do not recognize that a man's worth is not measured in the amount of doors he opens using his key. What is it about us that when faced with this shaming tactic brings out the macho pussy-spreading man? In what universe is fucking one girl once better than not fucking a girl? By that logic, how is fucking 1,000 women better than fucking none of them? To extend the argument, why should a MGTOW man shame another man because he has not fucked yet? In this space, things should be spoken openly, and each man's decision to go about his own way should not be measured on his ability to attract girls or on his sexual market value. Recently, I have watched a video from Ventilon MGTOW. Link in the description, and in that video he described clearly the phases of the male. He described how a man initially feels horny, then he feels lonely, and how being lonely is just another way of being horny, and this is something that all men face. Then comes the clarity phase, where the sexual drive around the ages of 35 to 36 starts to go down and the big brain actually starts to control the small brain. So I will focus on the first two phases because that's where being a virgin or celibate actually matters. Afterwards, you regain control over your decisions, and for a lot of these virgin men, there may be a choice element in their decisions as well. The teenage phase is when your hormones are kicking in and your testosterone is reaching peak levels, and it's all about you just yanking your dick away. Masturbation becomes your favorite game, and you constantly and desperately fantasize about having sex. You might get laid or you might not get laid during this time, but in this phase I will say that there is no element of control over your actions. If there is a bit of control, it is absolutely limited. If the opportunity arises, you're most probably going to fuck. But be it that we all look slightly awkward when we're teenagers, chances are that you're not until later on in your teens. Then kicks in the loneliness phase of your 20s to early 30s. The lack of women in your life, even for a little bit of time, hits you as loneliness. Whether you have male friends around you or whether you don't, you start to feel lonely. You may start contemplating that the main thing missing from your life may be a woman. It is a constant process that I can vouch on. This is a feeling that I went through after choosing to be not sexually active for 6 months, until I jumped on the bandwagon again and I satisfied this sensation a bit too much. We have talked it over many times before. We urge for that woman. There is an empty feeling in our hearts. We want the closeness and that interaction with a woman. And once that is brought to us, our sexual drives actually take over. The reproductive course takes over. And it is a part of being a man. This reality is only a male reality. You can choose to gratify the feeling or you can choose to ignore it and avoid it. That is a choice for any man to make. It is not something that society dictates at all. You are the master of your own destiny, no one else is. The question was asked of me whether sex is a need or a want. I have often contemplated sex as actually being a need, because that's what it feels like to me. In realistic terms, in logical terms, it is of course a want. You do not need sex to be alive. Quite obviously so, therefore it is going to be listed under the wants category. Realistically speaking though, in today's day and age, where your food is easy to find, where you have a roof over your head, where there is no imminent dangers of being killed off by the elements, I would calculate sex to be taking over as a need in your brain. It definitely has done that in my brain. It is not surprising, given the fact that the loneliness phase exists for all the men in their 20s, that absence of sex, breakup of relationships may lead to suicidal thoughts and depression. It is also less surprising to consider that there is associated health benefits with sex only and not masturbation. Reduction of stress, lowering of blood pressure, improving sleep, improving cardiovascular health, and improvements on your immune system, and boosts in your libido even further. There is a reason why I put stress first in these health benefits, because reduction in stress levels should ideally produce all of the other effects as well. The release of endorphins, the dopamine spike, the attachment with another person lowers your stress levels. Then the lowering of your stress levels brings about the rest of the observable health benefits. You see, if you know how the human body works, you can pretty much guess that if stress is reduced, the rest will follow. So yeah, there is no huge surprises there. I have found that for a lot of these men, and I'm talking specifically about virgins here, our stories and our experiences stand as a blockade to perhaps exploring their own sexualities. Some of these men are celibate by choice, no matter what you guys believe. However, the stories we share in MGTOW community should not scare you, but they should warn you on the potential ramifications of making bad choices while you're sexually active. I don't think there is anything wrong with being a virgin, but I personally would not want to be one, because sex can be fun and is enjoyable some of the times, and the more honest you become with yourself and your sexual partners, the more enjoyable the sex becomes. I also believe that the fear of engaging with females should be nullified by obtaining red pill knowledge and ditching the gynocentric belief, because her validation or her rejection should not mean that much to you. It is vital, however, to understand the red pill before engaging with a female, because inexperience combined with being sexually active at a later age with a much more sexually experienced woman will end up to the manipulation of that man. Knowledge, after all, is good, but knowledge needs to be applied. If celibacy is the way you wish to apply that knowledge, then good for you, and I salute your choice. In the Sex Hangout found on Zeta X's channel, you will see that we came to the conclusion that sex is never good for a man, because of the apparent dangers associated with engaging with a female in a sexual act. However, I have just listed health benefits associated with it, and we agreed, if you are aware, able to understand the consequences that may arise from your actions, then the decision is yours to make, and you make it with full knowledge about female nature. Now, as far as involuntary celibacy is concerned, which has been described by people as the inability to obtain sex from females, which is described as an inability to engage in that sexual discussion and phase shift, if you like, with females so as to obtain sex, is something that I find difficult to understand, yet I accept because it has been described to me and explained to me by people. People can also be indifferent to sex and can only consider it when the opportunity presents itself to them, what people call perpetual celibacy. However, I have concerns over involuntary celibacy because if no health issue is preventing you from engaging in that act with females, and you definitely want to engage in sexual activity with females, I would say that fighting your fears and exploring yourself may be something that should be a priority for those people. Not because you need to obtain sex in order to be a man, but because I strongly believe that if you want to get sex and remove yourself from that label, if that label is not the label that describes the person that you are in your head, then you should shed your limitations and try to overcome them. After that has occurred, if sex is one of those things that you want to achieve, then you should fight to develop yourself to the point that you want yourself to be developed. There is nothing wrong with being a virgin if that's what you want and that's what defines you. However, if you want to change yourself or change what defines you, you need to accept that and work to change yourself. I hate to see a man with an active and questioning mind to give up on anything in his life because it is unreachable. There is things that are unreachable. However, if sex is something you want, sex is not something that is unreachable at all. Thank you for listening. This was Nikochowski talking about all things man. Please like, share, and of course subscribe for more updates.